Will okay. So hi Ian. First of all, thank you very much for being here in the Hotpot. It's a pleasure to have you here, and also it's a personal honor because I'm a great fan of your work and all the projects that you did. So I'm really curious to deep dive about your path.
Cool.
First, let me give you a quick introduction about what we do in Hotpot. In Hotpot, we are a very young startup. What we do is to create creative, open innovation programs and formats for companies. Using a metaphor, what we do is to make the dinosaurs of companies talk in the same language with the unicorns, young people, young generations that are both outside or within the company itself. And usually when we do these master classes with our guests, we like to start with what we called out of the pod questions. So like ice-breaking questions for our guest. And I would like to start with a question about what you ate yesterday during dinner. What did you eat for dinner? And also, are you a good chef?
So yesterday for dinner, I had pasta with mushrooms that we brought back from Estonia
Okay.
on the weekend. My wife is Estonian and she is an amazing cook. And it's a problem because I would rather eat the food that she cooks than anything in a restaurant here in Paris. And there are obviously great restaurants here in Paris. I do like to cook. I cook less these days than I used to, although my wife and I have been talking about, we need to like schedule one night a week where
You cook as well.
I do cook because otherwise I get out of practice. Mostly I'm just her sous chef at the moment.
Okay, but what about your, let's say your lethal weapon in terms of food? Let's say there is a special guest and you have to cook. What do you prepare?
Ah, well, I have to say, like, the things that we rely on, my cooking for in our family are my hummus, my coffee, because I make great coffee. I'm not a fan of Nespresso. I'm not even really a fan of espresso, although I don't mind it. I think that the AeroPress is the superior
Yeah.
device. And then if you add the right ingredients to it, you can make it really special. Um, and then I think there's a chicken dish that I make that I'm forgetting the name of actually. It's one that has a real name, but now I'm not thinking of it. But
Okay.
it's like chicken marinated with olives and chicken marbella. That's what it's called.
Ah, chicken marbella. Okay,
That
that's cool. That's cool.
that
I would
is
like to try it. I would like to try it.
generally a crowd pleaser. Oh, and the other thing, our 9-year-old says that my pancakes are the best, and I made them this weekend for her cousins. And one of them actually went out of her way to text my wife and say, "I thought the pancakes were surprisingly good." So even a more independent third party has reviewed them recently and gave them high marks.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what about your dream job when you were a kid? Let's say when you were a 6 years old kid, what was your dream job? Did you had anything related to digital, to music? What you wanted to do in the past?
When I was 5 years old, I wrote a letter to the band Queen and asked them if I could join the band.
Okay.
Uh, and but I've
Did they
also
reply?
no, I didn't get a reply, and I never did make it into Queen. I did end up writing a chapter in the Beastie Boys book though, so I got like close to that job. But also, I found recently, something I had made when I was in first grade, which is around 6 years old, where I said that I wanted to be a fireman,
Okay.
which makes sense because my dad was a fireman.
Okay. So it was a way to continue, let's say, what your dad was also.
What I've learned, I have three daughters and one granddaughter, and what I've learned is like you're really limited by what you know.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter wanted to be a pediatrician because she was good at science and math. And like when you're 12 years old, what jobs do you know
Yeah.
where you're good at science and math? So she did get a PhD in genetics in the end. She ended up then when she was a teenager spending time with two research scientists from the UC San Diego who were women. And then she just stayed on that path. She's like, okay, I want to be a research scientist. Now today she works at an AI startup, which has, almost, nothing to do with being a pediatrician, although not quite. That's not quite true because they are a medical focused
Okay.
AI startup. But I think that that's the thing is you have to give kids exposure to different professions. Of course, I wanted to be a fireman. What did I know? I knew two jobs probably. My mom worked in a factory. My
Yes.
dad was a fireman. Okay, fireman, right?
You need to have a complete view or explore to have other inputs.
I mean,
Uh,
I think one of life's lessons is it's impossible to inhabit a world that we can't imagine, right?
wow.
And so,
Oh, this is amazing.
you have to be able to imagine the future before you can go there. And that's also, if you think about it, what's incredibly unique about humans is we can actually imagine a future that was different than yesterday. I don't think dogs can do that, or if they do, it's incredibly sad because they're not
Yeah,
doing anything.
a bit limited, but okay. And what about a memory that you have of Paris? Since we met for the first time at Vivatech, I'm curious to know what's the best memory that you have about Paris? A moment, a feeling that you had.
I think there was a club here called La Mano. I think it still exists, but it's not quite the same. Where you've got this like Mexican restaurant that turns into a dance club at midnight, and it was full of people who just wanted to dance. I think these moments in time are like hard to capture, and they're always moving. You
Yeah.
know, um, in other words, like something that's like underground and cool doesn't stay that way for very long ever. Um, but there was this moment where it just felt like you kind of, in many ways, like felt like what Paris was, which was this like melting pot
Yeah.
in the way that the U.S. or New York must have been once upon a time, but I never got to experience it in my life. And you have people gathered for something which is primal but positive.
Okay.
uh
A lot
you
of
know
energy, a lot of emotions, I guess, from this
exactly,
moment.
yeah. So to me it's not just that, it's like a snapshot of of a moment in time.
I see.
And I think in many ways, that's Paris at its best. And you could see that in a number of other places. I think, it comes through in, the exhibitions that you see at the museums here. It comes through, in sort of like, a startup like Ledger, where it's very multicultural and, people are coming together for a, for a, an innovative mission.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Et cetera. So I think, but to me, like, there's a snapshot there of Lamano that will always remind me of a moment in time.
That's really great. And now, since you work in some amazing companies in so also different rules, like from Yahoo, Topspin, Beats, your own startup, Apple, LVMH. We will also talk about it in a few. Then you're currently having also different rules as a board member in some companies, but you are also the chief experience officer at a Ledger. But now I want to start with a very high level question, but kind of deep because it's about innovation. What is innovation for you? And also, I would like to ask you if for you, innovation is more like a cultural factor or more a technological aspect for companies.
I think, I think innovation is frankly overrated for companies, because I think that when people say that, they often mean innovation for innovation's sake.
Yeah,
For me, I look much more at first principles. What is the job that we're doing, and how could we be doing it better? And what are the tools that we have at our, at our fingertips, to do it better? And so I think that, for me personally, innovation is really more just curiosity.
yeah,
What can I learn, and how can I apply those learnings? At LVMH, which is maybe the most relevant, there was sort of this like topic of innovation, and people really wanted, this idea of intrapreneurship, et cetera. But the reality is that, there weren't that many new things to be found. Most of the things, for example, we spent a lot of money with a consultant trying to find a new way of doing luxury commerce. And at the end, they didn't find anything. There were ideas, of course, but they weren't ideas that, that we hadn't had before. And in the end, the work was to just do the work of omnichannel, right? And so I think that what you need to look at is more innovative ways of looking at your current business. I'll give you a specific example. At LVMH, and now I'm on the board of Dr. Martens, I would go back to fundamentals and go, okay, well, what are we as a business, right? And sometimes the innovation is just in the way you contextualize your own business. If someone at Louis Vuitton thinks, oh, we're in the business of selling leather handbags, they're actually missing what it is that Louis Vuitton actually sells, which is creativity, it's craft, it's identity, it's belonging to a community of people who like the same things. Like, these are the fundamentals of what you sell. So sometimes I think the innovation is just rethinking your own business. We're in the business of attention generation and value capture. Are we properly organized to do those two things well in the current context? Because maybe the way that we've done them in the past is more specific. The way we did attention generation in the past was about magazines and fashion shows. Well, maybe attention generation today is done in different ways. The way we've done value capture in the past is retail stores and and kind of new materials, new products. Maybe the way we do value capture tomorrow is different. Maybe the way we do value capture tomorrow includes other things such as digital ownership. So I would say, sure, that's innovation, but it's not innovation for innovation's sake. It's innovation along, what our business already does. I would say that in all these businesses, the only two people who matter are the creators and the consumers. In the music business, I used to say there's only two people who matter in the music business: people who make music and people who love music. And the rest of us are in the way. And I think similarly in any business, even for our business at Ledger, the market is tough. And my encouragement is to tell people, look, focus on the products we make and the people who use them. When you think about all this stuff.
What's the process to make a company think in that way? Not innovation just for the sake of doing it, but realizing it. For example, we're not selling leather goods. We're kind of selling a dream, the branding, etc. So what's the process, the steps that you suggest?
I think good leaders do that naturally. And then the question is, how do you empower the people in your organization to work on the different vectors? Like, for example, one trick that I think is a great one for for a business that's going through a transformation is to simply enumerate the open Google Sheets. Like, simpler tools are always better. So open Google Sheets. Now, in each row, enumerate the place you touch your customer. So, they come to my store, they come to my website, they call me on the phone, there's sort of like there's a customer touch point that you can enumerate. In most businesses, it's fewer than 500 rows. So it's a lot, but it's finite. Now, column B, who owns this customer touch point? Now the CEO should go through and color each row either red or green. There's no orange, there's no yellow. It's, and now the person in column B's job is to go turn it green or keep it green. That's it. I think too often we think, we talk about things that don't matter. We use, we let consultants make us slide decks with a bunch of words that mean nothing. It's usually pretty simple. We make something, we sell something, we generate attention, we capture value. And so, that's why I love, to me, Clayton Christensen, rest in peace, The Innovator's Dilemma, The Innovator's Solution, Seeing What's Next. You need to acknowledge that it's very difficult for one business to become another business. It's incredibly difficult. Yeah. Almost no business has ever truly succeeded at that, or even when they've succeeded, they've ultimately, changed, and, markets change, and even, a company like General Electric doesn't last in its form forever, right? So anyway, I think I think the problem is like, if you take something like digital and you put this generic digital word on it and put it in the corner. Innovation. Oh, let's put this generic innovation word on it and put it in the corner. Like, it's usually more valuable to go back to fundamentals and go, all right, what are we trying to do here? We're generating attention and we're capturing value. Okay, how do we do it? What's the best way to do it with our product for our customers in this market? I think a lot of times you just need to rethink that, but that's what leaders do. I mean, you can't expect, the person who does, print magazine PR to come to you tomorrow and go, oh, I want to, it's dangerous for them to do that. The leader has to set those, has to reallocate those priorities and resources for the team.
Amazing. And now the other question that I have is about your daily routine now that you're working as a chief experience officer. A very quick sneak peek about what's your daily routine, your ownership, what's your focus on a daily basis.
Cool. So my job today is to lead a lot of the business of Ledger. So we make hardware at a high margin. And make and sell hardware at a high margin. We have a companion app to go with that. We have a development platform, developers for third party. We have the only development platform on top of a secure element on the planet. And so we have that development platform and community of developers is very important to us, just like it is to an Apple or a Microsoft. And then on top of that business, we have a number of other businesses. We have a recurring revenue business, a subscription business for seed phrase backup and recovery. We have a transactional services business, buy, sell, swap, stake, lend, our own credit card. And then we have an enterprise business to secure enterprises. And then we do a lot of direct to consumer sales on ledger.com. So that's it. That's how we manage the company. So for me, my day-to-day is managing, the breadth of those businesses across the company, which means, leading a team of people who are, in most cases, much more talented than me and doing the day-to-day on each of those things. Also supply chain, customer care, et cetera, on those things. So for me, in terms of way of working, I basically am, in the office from 9 to 7 every day. I'm on, WhatsApp before and after, usually it's like, this is kind of a 24/7 job, like this is the kind of job that you live the job. And I have a daily meeting with my team to make sure that, that everybody's okay and nobody's blocked. Once a week, we have a longer meeting, which is really about metrics and, the business metrics and what are we doing to move those metrics. And then we have an executive committee meeting once a week where we do that. And then there are regular board meetings. I'm also a member of the board. And that's how we manage the company. So, it really depends. Right now we're launching, we have our products in market, so we keep those going. So we have transactional services products. We have our Ledger Nano products in market. We've sold more than 6.5 million of those. We have a new piece of hardware coming that's been very challenging to make because it has a really innovative screen designed by Tony Fidel. And then we have the subscription service is new and is launching really soon. So, it's a combination of, maintaining the existing business in a very difficult market. Crypto market has been super difficult in 2023. And then also, bringing these new products to market, including our enterprise product. We have a new enterprise product called TradeLink. And actually the difficulty in the market has made the demand for that product higher because the product is in many ways is in response to the, mismanagement that's gone on in the world of crypto over the past 18 months. So, we're working with institutions on, getting this product into market and, improving the market overall. Hopefully, we're a part of, the growth in the market as it comes back.
I see.
I'd say the other thing for me is that the just on a personal level, running and exercise is super important to me. Like, I think if I only have good ideas when I'm either running or taking a shower. So, those things are important.
These are the inspiring moments for you to have new ideas that you then bring into your job.
It's really just clarity.
Yeah.
To me, what I find in those moments is clarity. Your phone's down, you're not talking to anyone, you definitely have chemical changes in your body. And there's puzzles that seemed difficult become clear and obvious in a way. So for me, running, yoga, and rowing is what I do. And people, when I was marathon training and I was a startup CEO, people were like, how do you have time to, marathon train when you're a startup CEO? And my answer was, I don't have time not to. Like, I really need that. I can't do my job unless I have that. I'm somebody who, crowds of people, they don't give me energy, they take energy from me. Right. So for me to do what I do and for me to show up for other people, I have to, take care of myself. And then the other thing for me, I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot. I don't watch movies. I don't watch TV. I don't give a shit. For me, music, running books.
That's great. And in LVMH that you also mentioned, you brought a lot of let's call it also open innovation culture from Maison de Startup to entrepreneurship program like there. I wanted to ask you why do you think that open innovation, or let's say the approach that you brought, is important for companies, and also some kind of best practices that you see in the industry, not only luxury and fashion, but in general for companies? Why it's important to adopt this approach?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think everybody at every company should read at least the innovator solution, because I think it gives you a nice framework to work within. And it's, Clay says more in that book than I could possibly say. It's an old book at this point, but it's still relevant in my view. And for what I was always looking for in those programs, whether it was the retail lab inside our own building, or the LVMH Innovation Award, or Maison de Startup at LVMH, I was always looking for like what's the practical approach to get to know these startups and to help them, right? Because the worst case is that you just sort of like, oh, I'm going to pretend nothing exists and I'll only care about these companies if they get big enough. When the reality is that if you meet 10 startups, there's probably only one that's going to succeed. It's very difficult to tell which one. But having a relationship with them is certainly valuable. Maybe you can help them. Maybe they can help you. Maybe there's somebody that you're going to hire in 2 years. Maybe it is something that the group should invest in, because there is an investment arm, multiple investment arms at LVMH, right? So, and the only way you get to know, I mean, you invest in people, not companies. So the only way you get to know that is to meet them. So we really, we tried to refine things and have, for example, the retail lab was a room inside of Vendée Avenue Montagne, where we just would every 6 months have a new crop of companies who had new retail innovation. And the Maisons would then come and see the innovation. And what ended up happening is, yes, seeing the innovations was interesting, but also you had this opportunity for the executive team of a Maison to get out of the office, to all be together, to think about the future together. And, it was interesting to watch. Like, in some ways, the value wasn't even in seeing that new shiny object. The value was just in, the teams sitting together and debating, is this interesting? Why is it interesting? Should we be doing something like this? Should we be doing something? And so I think that, it's really just about building those connections, mostly human connections, actually, but also just getting the exposure and getting people to think, about the future, and then to think about, how this comes and where it comes. So I also think that, it's something that you never like kind of get right. I still believe, that with things like this, they're really more about the human transformation within a company, right? It's an HR transformation. I think two things there. One, if you get the organizational structure right, then you'll probably get to the end result over time. And if the organizational structure is wrong, you'll probably never get there, right? When I started at LVMH, situation where IT managers report to the CFO, and technology is something that is meant to be minimized in terms of risk and cost, right? As opposed to being seen as a core driver of the future business, right? So, simply making the organizational change of having the head of IT be a CTO who reports to the CEO, will make a bigger step change in the business than any other program that you do, right? Having digital not be in a corner, but be a part of the retail organization, a part of the marketing organization, that's more important than having an innovation team that is like in a corner and can't do anything. So I think that with these HR things, you want to like wipe the whiteboard clean every 6 months and go, okay, what's working, what's not working, never, like, momentum is the enemy in all cases, right? You always want to do what you're doing today because it's meaningful for the business. And I think if you really push that, then you'll get a good you'll get a good outcome. For example, and maybe the outcome will be bad first. Like, let's say you take the head of IT, and instead of reporting to the CFO, he reports to the CEO. Maybe he's not the right person for that job. Okay, well, he's not the right, if that's the case, then he's not the right person for that job today. And you're going to discover it sooner by having them work for the CEO. and then you're going to make the change. You're going to recruit a new CTO into the company, and
Yeah.
and so
It's a process, and
yeah,
also
and it's okay to get it wrong as long as you're getting it wrong on the way to getting it right.
exactly. And it's also interesting the human factor, the value of the connections that we mentioned. For example, in Hotpot, we're also investing a lot and putting a lot of stress, let's say, in networking, the inspirational factor inside the companies. Because, I mean, we see a lot of values, a lot of manifestos in companies' website, but we need leaders that have to represent these values to be inspirational. And also, and this is linked to my next question, is about breaking the company silos that sometimes are present, like between like senior positions and more junior position, that they don't talk. There are these kind of walls, but with breaking these walls, you create innovation, because on one side there is kind of experience that you bring from more senior position, and on the other one, different point of views, new trends that maybe are not seen by higher, more senior figures. And so what I wanted to ask you is a suggestion that you can give us as a startup when we approach these companies and we suggest this kind of transformation, our formats. You work a lot with startups. If you have any kind of tips, suggestion that you want to give us, since you are also very young and we really like to learn also from you, given your experience.
It's a really tough question. Because I think that any company that gets to a certain scale sort of naturally ends up with factions, and I've never found a great way to, to around this. Like even when I had a small company, a smallish company, but I had a team in LA and a team in San Francisco. You end up with like the San Francisco team and the LA team, right? And they're sort of like, they always talk about those guys over there. They don't get it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're all on the same team. You're all Californians. You're an hour flight from each other. You have a video conference between the two of you. Like, how can you factionalize? But I think it's so innately human that it's difficult to do. I was listening to the founder of Khan Academy speak on a TED podcast recently, and he was addressing this topic, and what he said is, and I really feel what he was saying, in that the best way to deal with this, and it was actually the host of the show who was saying it, because he's an organizational psychologist, I believe, or a sociologist, maybe, I don't know, is that that subcultures do need to exist, right? And so it's interesting, because if you look at LVMH as an example, you have that very much. And in LVMH, you have this, like, what Netflix calls a culture of empowerment and accountability. And also you have many subcultures. The subculture of Bulgari is very different from the subculture of Marc Jacobs or the subculture of Sephora. So the subculture of Sephora Asia is very different from the subculture of Sephora US. And I think there's something in that we can learn from, right? Instead of trying, it would be crazy to try to make an LVMH culture. It'd be crazy. It would make zero sense, right? Because you have, there are huge differences between between the businesses, and that's also why from kind of a governance model, you have, if you are the CEO of an LVMH maison, you very much are in control of your maison, but you're also accountable for the success of that maison. So knowing that if you don't do a good job, they will find a new CEO for that maison. So just like they talk about at Netflix, empowerment and accountability. And I do think that that's probably the key, if you have to have those two things. If you search like Netflix culture document, you'll find this amazing Netflix document from 2009, where they talk about this culture of empowerment and accountability. And Reed Hastings has written a book since then, kind of revisiting those things 10 years later. But to me, that's the only thing I can imagine that works, is to actually allow the subcultures to flourish. If you think about it, like the internet has done this fundamental thing where it's moved humanity from, kind of mass culture to niche culture. And if you just always acknowledge that that's the fact and you can't change that, and I don't care if you are a record label or if you are thinking about the way that you manage a large company, I think that it makes sense to contextualize within that. So you go, okay, well, we are going to have subcultures. So what can I do to support those subcultures? What can I do to make sure that, everyone has kind of a mission within the company, but acknowledge that, there are different, cultures of people, and it's when we all come together and into that melting pot that we get something unique. So I think, to me, and I also think it's not practical necessarily to kind of to truly decrease the distance between the CEO and everyone in the company.
Okay.
It's not, that's just not the CEO could spend, 10 hours a day doing skip meetings. By the way, this goes for every person in the company. Like, I felt this when I was at Yahoo. Like, I realized at some point, this is Yahoo during the mid 2000s, there were so many exciting things going on at the company. And at some point I realized I've got to stop paying attention to what's going on in the rest of the company, actually, because I could spend all day just having super interesting conversations with other people in the company, but it doesn't help me do my job necessarily. It doesn't help me contribute what I need to contribute. And I get a great example of this is when I was at Apple. I was building Apple Music. And if you thought I had any idea of what was coming next on the hardware side, think again. Zero idea. And guess what? I don't need to know. I need to do my job and build Apple Music. And if I do that well, it'll help the company overall. And I trust that the hardware team is doing what they do at Apple. I don't need to go not like have them do a show and tell for me and me go, wow, I really know. No, I really know. Aren't I cool? I know what's going on in the hardware division. Like, I think it doesn't actually matter. I think that companies work when everybody does their job.
Amazing.
Right.
Okay.
And so, if I don't have as a startup CEO, if I don't have a CFO who wants to spend none of the money and a head of marketing who wants to spend all the money, then I'm probably doing something wrong, right? Like, that tension is good, right? Tension on an executive team is healthy.
Okay.
But that's because everybody is doing their job and doing it extraordinarily well. Nobody in a company knows everything. You kind of have two levers. You have resource allocation and prioritization.
I see.
Everything else is kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this insight, and also for the great keywords that you gave us. That for sure are interesting, extremely interesting. Last question, also because we still have like 5 minutes. It's a question related to your future. My question is, you did a lot of things. You see many different companies in different positions. Um, what's it, what is the only thing, let's say, let's select one that you didn't do yet and that you want to do in the next 10 years?
Well, I think for me, and look, I'm 51 years old. I'm a grandfather. Like, this is my last job, right? I hope.
Okay.
I think for me, I want to, see Ledger through, to be the best, company that it can be. And then I will probably, be a board investor, advisor, after that. Like, my goal is, perfect day for me would be, get up, run, mountain bike, yoga, whatever it is I do to take care of myself, meditate, work in the afternoon, but maybe a long afternoon, maybe 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. and help companies, help people, and then spend time with my family and read books. Like, that's like, if I could, that's really what I want to do. I don't have, from a professional perspective, really, when we launched Apple Music, I had already accomplished what I set out to accomplish, which was taking music from science fiction to every iPhone. I feel super lucky because I got to apply all the things I'd learned watching the transformation of the music business from 0% digital to 99% digital, and think about how does that apply to other industries. And I'm incredibly lucky because I think that, where I was, somewhat prescient on the way that the internet would affect humanity.
Yeah.
Now I get the opportunity to think about how digital ownership will affect humanity, because I think that change will be at least as impactful on humanity, as the revolution of information that the internet was. And so, to be able to have a front row seat and to think deeply about, what that means, a lot of it is work because you're managing a company and you're managing people and you're trying to write code and release products and support those products. And the stakes are very high because our products protect, billions in asset value, right? So I like that operational. Again, my mom worked in a factory and now as a nurse, and my dad was a fireman. I'm from Indiana. I like to work. I like to have my hands dirty. I'm an engineer. I like to code. I don't code so much, but I like the notion of
Yeah.
creating, delivering to a customer. At the same time, I really enjoy like the the intellectual side of it. What 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 is value
Yeah, I
in
see.
society? And
I
that
like.
goes from like a gold-backed dollar to an Ethereum, to our CryptoPunks leveraged Ethereum. Like there's this like very wide spectrum of what is value, and why does someone pay $3,000 for a luxury handbag? It's somewhere in the middle, right? And why does someone spend $500 to see Taylor Swift, and why does someone spend $0 to listen to Taylor Swift? Like these are all super interesting questions. I think, and to me, they're all in the same sort of in the same spectrum. So I'll never, like, as long as my brain still works, I won't be able to stop thinking about these things. So I would love for that thought to be useful to someone.
Course, yeah,
But
and I think it's really, really great what you mentioned and this interesting path. So thank you very much, Ian, for all your insights, and it was a pleasure to talk with you, and also honor. And I will keep you posted also with the final contents of this interview, and I will send you everything, and I'm sure you will find it interesting, and it will be a pleasure also to follow up in the next month and keep each other posted.
sounds good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the interest.
Thank you very much. I will keep you posted, and I wish you also a great rest of the day, and also
Thank
a
you.
lot of yoga sessions, so that maybe
Yeah.
new ideas and a lot of creativity. Thank you very
Thank you
much,
so
Ian.
much. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Bye.
Matteo.
Thank you very much. Let's keep each other
Bye.
posted. Ciao.
Ciao.